What is up, everybody? It is week 3 rewind right here on Alternative Edge. I'm your host, as always, Tony Cotillo, Tony Jigsaw Cotillo, right here on the Alternative Edge, powered always by our good buddies over there at BetQL. And as you follow along right on the bottom, use promo code Jigsaw, and you get 50% off, whether you do the 2 sport packages per week or you do an annual package for the whole year. Completely up to you. I'll give you a little insight onto how we utilize that a little bit later. If anybody's checking in, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, you know the drill. Make sure you like, subscribe as always. Make sure you're getting involved in the conversation. Who was your MVP? Who was your bust? What questions do you have for the week? You want waiver talk? You know, we're going to go through the whole thing. Obviously, we got a lot of injuries to cover. We got a lot of different things. Talk about snap counts, usage percentages, you name it. We're here. Just let us know what you want to talk about. I want to talk about injuries first because I think they are definitely rearing their ugly head, I guess we could say, right? Because every time we turn around, I feel like there's a different injury. And I'm not one of those guys that always says that you need to handcuff backs. I'm not always the guy that says, you need to make sure that you have multiple backup quarterbacks. I'm just not that guy. But I'll tell you what, it's proven me to be wrong a little bit. It's proven me to be wrong a little bit because this is kind of probably the year where you want to make sure that you probably have your ducks in a row when it comes to a lot of these moves. And again, as we continue to move on, it's going to get harder and harder based on who to pick up, especially if you're in a 12 or even a 14-man league. Because I'll tell you what, those 14-man leagues, there is nothing on the waiver wire. Nothing on the waiver wire. And again, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I know some people like it both ways. I know some people say it's more of a challenge. I'm not too sure about that. We shall see. But there's going to be a lot of interesting things going forward about again who's going to start. You just streamline some of your quarterbacks. A lot of RB2 is going to become RB1s. We're going to talk about that as well. And it's going to be really interesting to see who drafted well. I'll say that because, you know, do you draft for depth or do you draft for flyers? I say that all the time. Like when you're in the draft and you're talking about building your team, I always say to people, are you drafting for, a bunch of flyers that you just hope, or you drafting for depth? It's a pretty different dynamic either way. I guess it has to do with more likely like what kind of people are in your league, how often are they really heavy on waivers? Like I know in one league I'm in, I'm like ninth for waivers, and I'll probably get whoever I want because nobody looks at it, nobody cares. Right. So I mean, and that's not me getting up at that whole like 2:59 a.m. and all that. No, it's none of that. It's just people don't care, right? But I mean, other leagues where there's absolutely nobody on there because everybody's drafted 2 to 3 quarterbacks. Everybody's handcuffed. Like listen, it is crazy, right? It is crazy. But let's get into some of these injuries right off the bat. I think obviously maybe not the biggest one, but the one that stung the person the most and the one that, oh man, I could feel it through the screen was James Conner. Um, Such a shame. Such a shame, honestly. Here's a guy was, on the other side of 30. We talked about over the years, 2 to 3 last years, heavy usage. Somebody that's consistent, you can keep an eye on. We did talk about maybe Trey Benson inserting himself a little bit, into the lineup, but again, not because of injury, just because of another year in the offense, another year for getting more in shape and more fit. And unfortunately, now it looks like he's going to be the guy. James Conner just, I thought it was his knee. Sounds like it was his ankle, but it's pretty much shattered. One of those injuries where ligaments are torn, and it's gonna be a tough rehab for James Conner. So our thoughts and prayers obviously go out to him. And again, I mean, do we have to really say? Well, it's a no-brainer, right? That you go out and you get Trey Benson, and I think I looked at what was crazy is, um, I think he was owned in like 62% of all leagues, almost like it was insane to me because I mean I'm not a handcuff guy, but I don't have James Conner, but I wanted Trey Benson. And I just thought that he was going to eke into that production, maybe like a 60-40 play, even possibly get them about 55-45, making him a pretty good flex option, especially in the passing game. So, I'm surprised that he's actually available, to be honest with you. I'm absolutely shocked, to be honest with you. So, obviously, listen, if he's there, you got to go get him, right? I mean, I think that's DeMarcado gets in there. He's that change of pace guy. I know, listen, they pissed me off because I turn around and next thing you know, I see DeMarcado in there a bunch of times and he's fumbling the ball. He's missing assignments. Like, I don't know why they do that. Just put the guy in there that you're comfortable with. You don't have to mix things up all the time. I think these guys they overthink themselves a lot. So, but yeah, obviously Trey Benson is the guy. And listen, I will say another one that was really intriguing. There's a lot of stuff going on in New York, right? Russ gets benched. You got Jackson Dart. Are you going to buy into the Jackson Dart experience? This is why I think I love Superflex and Best Ball, because I think if you were in a Superflex or a Best Ball, that obviously Best Ball you're drafting at least 3 quarterbacks. So I'm curious to know how many people drafted Jackson Dart, for the long haul, right? Because you got to that nitty gritty at the end where everybody had 2 quarterbacks and you're in a, say, 12-man best ball league. And you're talking about 24 QBs right off the board. Not everybody's going to get that third quarterback. So did somebody draft Jackson Dart because there was no starters available, just hoping for this opportunity? Because I think this kid, listen, he's going to be a dynamic. I feel sorry for Russ. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, here's a guy, say what you want. I know my man Joe on Twitter had a really good point. He said, remember when Russ came in, they just signed somebody to a big, big extension. They went out starting Russell Wilson, right? So I do remember that. I do remember that. So yeah, it does come back full circle. I just feel bad. Like, why even bring Russ in the beginning? Why even bring him in at all? You know what I mean? Like, you brought all those quarterbacks in, and you draft Jackson Dart. You know that's going to be your heir apparent. Listen, we all know, like, when you're an NFL team, you have to know, and I know this is going to sound cliche, but you got to know that you're not going to the big dance. You got to know that you're a couple years at least away. They got a hell of a defense that's being built. I love it, but the offense just needs more time. I think we all knew that, right? So why even go with Russ? Like, I'm the big proponent of take your lumps, put the kid out there, let him get on the field experience, just like they did with everybody else, right? For the most part, I was back in the day, I'm a Philly guy. I was so against the whole Doug Peterson thing. Bring in Dougie P, let him start until McNabb's ready. Come on, stop. Just throw D-Mac out there and let him roll. Right? Just throw him out there and let him roll. Like, give me a break. If you're drafting somebody in the first round, he's your heir apparent. You let the dude start from day one. I could see what they're doing in Cleveland. I get it. Right? Whether it be Dylan Gabriel, whether it be Shedeur Sanders, it doesn't matter because they weren't first round talents. They weren't drafted, in the beginning as saying right now they're going to be the cornerstone. Like, they hope that they turn into that. But when you draft a guy in the first round, you're already saying to yourself, you're anointing him as that cornerstone of the franchise. So a lot of crazy things going on in New York. You got this. Listen, everybody who kept on Scatterboo, that's where you do it. I know, listen. There's always got to be a jokester, right? There's always got to be a jokester. And again, here's I'm going to answer this as professionally as possible, right? So my man Tommy checking in says, "How's the Drake London pick look?" Right? I know, and you know what, Tommy? I would also say to people, "How's the Brian Thomas Jr. pick looking?" See, because I got a lot of ammo in my chamber when it comes to these talks. Because all you have to do is, right now has nothing to do with Drake London. It has all to do with the offense out there. Something's going on with the offensive play calling, with the scheme. We already saw it. They already fired somebody today, and they're moving people around, right? So this has nothing to do with Drake London, right? It has nothing to do with Drake London. But again, like, you tell me, like, where was Jamar Chase last week? Again, like, everybody has all these bullets that they want to throw, but again, like, there's not these guys that are actually blowing blowing everything up, right? I mean, it finally took AJ Brown, right? AJ Brown. Like, let's look at the wide receivers last week, right? Trey Tucker. Did you draft Trey Tucker? Probably not. And Cortland Sutton was the number 2 fantasy wide receiver last week or this week. Cortland Sutton. And Tommy, I love you, bro, but I hope that you watched my segment on Drake London, or I mean on Cortland Sutton in July, and said that he damn near is going to be a top 15 receiver. So there you go, right there. If you also watch it, you said I was very, very skeptical of AJ Brown. He finally turned the corner this week. Again, where are these other guys? Like you can say something about Drake London, but you can't say something about everybody else, right? So again, we have to wait to see. And I will say this, all kidding aside, I drafted Drake London as my top guy based on volume, just based on volume alone, being that absolute guy that's going to get all the volume no matter what the situation is. And listen, he has 16 targets. He has 16 targets, right? So I mean, he's getting, 27 targets. 27 targets. That's 9 plus a game, Tommy. So I'm damn near right on that double-digit precipice. I don't draft for touchdowns. Touchdowns are a premium. Say it all the time. They are a premium. And I will say that I mentioned numerous times the only other guy I would have taken over Drake London would have been Alma St. Brown. And look what he's doing. Right. So listen, I'm not always going to be right, but I'm not always going to defend myself in week 3. Right. I mean, it's the same people that think because they're 3-0 to win the Super Bowl. There are people that never played fantasy football before. That's okay, though. That's okay. Right. That's okay. Nobody ever brings up the good material. Right. Nobody ever brings up the good material. Like nobody's bringing up on this stream right now. What about Jake? My TikTok's been blowing up. You know why? Because I told everybody you could get Jake. Stop with the tight end nonsense. Everybody's drafted Trey McBride. Everybody's drafted all these guys. George Kittle, Brock Bowers. Screw them. I said from the beginning, screw them. Draft Jake Ferguson. This is a guy that's in the offense that's going to get tons and tons and tons of targets. How many catches did he get last week? How many? And who drafted Jake Ferguson? Again, my TikTok's been blowing up. Yo, dude, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I went in on Jake Ferguson. Oh, and by the way, all the people I combat it with Brian Thomas Jr. I don't trust Brian Thomas Jr. Brian Thomas Jr. being way overdrafted. Brian Thomas Jr. being way overdrafted, way overvalued. And why? Because of the quarterback situation. Why? Because I wasn't trusting it. And look and behold, a lot of people blowing my TikTok up over that as well. Not always going to be right, but when I'm right, listen, here's the thing. If people were to throw people out there that I'm wrong on, even though it's only 3 weeks, after 3 weeks, that's all good. But again, bring the rest of the ammo of the stuff that I got right. Bring the rest of the ammo of stuff I got right. Okay? So, because again, I hope everybody hit the Josh Oliver betting ticket last week. Because how about that Josh Oliver 8.5 to 1 anytime touchdown that I predicted right here on the alternative edge? Right? That happened literally in 5 minutes into the freaking game. So I love this stuff, man. I love it. So please, Tommy and everybody else, just continue to keep bringing it, man. Keep bringing, because I got to answer for everything. I keep my own receipts. I just hope that you read them as well. So let's get back into a lot of these injuries. And I want to get back to the New York situation. And really, listen, I'll tell you what, I watched the Scatterboo kid. That kid is dynamic. He looks like he'll run through a wall. Reminds me not of Mike Allstott. You know, I know that's going to be the cliche. Who really reminds you of is Tom Rathman. Remember Tom Rathman? Man, for the Niners, like this dude looks like a human ping pong ball out there. And he's like a Mercedes Jones Drew, right? He's like a Jones Drew because he's got that, MJD, Maurice Jones Drew had that speed, had the elusiveness, and had the strength. And Scatterboo, he's not this huge cutter, but man, can he knock people out? So, I think this is one of those injuries where for Tyrone Tracy Jr. that he misses like 2 or 3 weeks, but by the time he comes back, I think he obviously already lost his role. I do. I think he already lost his role. So that's something I don't think it's too hard to keep an eye on as well. And then you got listen, CD Lamb, right? And I know everybody's gonna be jumping to the George Pickens wagon, but if as you see, listen, George Pickens started to be George Pickens again. All right. Now, George Pickens started to be George Pickens again. Slamming helmets, getting people's face, not listening to people, shading people off, fanning people away. Like that's what got George Pickens out of Pittsburgh. It's a shame these dudes are in their own head. So if you're going to ask me, over the next 3 to 4 weeks, obviously you saw with Jake Ferguson. I'm going to give myself a pound on the back again for that. That's going to continue doing an offense, but I would look at Kevontae Turpin. Like Turpin's the guy I want. Like honestly, Turpin's the guy that I want. He's dynamic. He plays hard. He always finds space. Looks like no matter what's thrown to him, he catches it. So I like Kevontae Turpin. So if I'm picking anybody up in that Dallas or in that Dallas wide receiver room based on the CD Land injury, I'm going Turpin. I do. I like Turpin a lot. Mike Evans, poor Mike. I'll tell you what, that's couldn't happen at a better time for the Philadelphia Eagles going out there, to Tampa Bay. They get I think Godwin might I think Godwin might play this week, not sure, but again, he's not going to be 100%. And Mike Evans may miss a month, right? Thank God for Ibuka, right? Thank God for Ibuka, because if Ibuka wasn't there, my God, like they'd be relying on Sterling Shepard. I mean, think about it. I will say this. I will say this, that this is one of those scenarios to where if you drafted Rashad White, or if he's available, like in a league where you can't get other players, I would take a flyer on Rashad White. Rashad White's a very good pass catcher out of the backfield. So don't be surprised if he really gets inserted into this offensive passing game in dual back sets. We watched this before. We watched it in Minnesota before the injury to Aaron Jones. You had Aaron Jones outflanked right, and you had Jordan Mason in the back. We've watched this in Baltimore, where you've had Derrick Henry who all of a sudden can't hold on to a ball in the I formation, but you got Justice Hill, a little bit in the slot. So we've watched this multiple times play out. So Rashad White could really find himself a good 5 to 6 targets a game, on top of the 2 or 3 that he was already getting. So you're talking about a guy who might get 6 to 7. Like that's a lot that you can get off of waivers right now in an offense that is going to be putting up some points. So I would look at that as well. Xavier Worthy looks like he could come back in week 4. That's going to be a big boost to that Kansas City offense, right? A big boost to that Kansas City offense. Rashad Rice still not till week 6. So the injury bug is hitting, man. The injury bug is hitting. My man Vegas checking in. He says GP is malcontent who runs half-ass routes when he is the number one option. Just watch the Steelers all 22. If you think I'm lying, I do not, Vegas. I do not think you're lying at all. I remember like here's a funny thing. A lot of people, they come back and they ask me why I think some of the things that I do. And I said in the offseason, I was fading CD Lamb. And everybody said to me, dude, you're out of your mind. Why are you fading CD Lamb? And I said, look, I faded CD Lamb based on where you had to draft him to get him on your squad. And the number one reason why I said it, Vegas, you're going to like this, was because of George Pickens. And I said, not because George Pickens was going to take, take targets away or take catches away. It was because just his presence alone on that team was a big cancer to me. And I was like, you know what? That his presence alone on that squad just automatically brings me down on that entire team. And I was like, you know what? I want nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. Not for a guy that I drafted the first round. Right. So again, and you bring up a great point. That's why, because the half-ass effort that he gives all the theatrics on the side, it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. The guy could have all the talent in the world, but it's just not worth it. It's just not. So yeah, for me, man, for me, I listen. I go after Turpin. I would definitely go after Turpin. Let's get into the waiver wire a little bit. Like who do we think? Right? Who do we think? And I again, I I know everybody is going to jump off on Trey Tucker. Now I will say that we're starting to see a little bit creases in that offense, meaning with the big time names of Brock Bowers because of the knee injury, Jacoby Myers just not existent, Ashton Genty. I don't know if they're holding them back. I don't, I don't know. I saw a thing about Chip Kelly saying they were kind of using some kind of low management on them, like they do in the NBA. Really odd. I wish Chip would just stick to the play calling and not trying to just concoct some kind of magic potion to help these players like his smoothies. But what I will say is, listen, Trey Tucker, nice player. Okay. If you're expecting Trey Tucker to do that all year long, you're going to be sadly mistaken. However, I do think there is a world where he could be kind of like a streamer. Like this week against Chicago, you could have a really good package play with Geno Smith and Trey Tucker just based on what that game script is going to be. Right? That's going to be, you're starting to see in Chicago, you're starting to see the Ben Johnson effect. Now, I know I talked about we weren't sure, didn't like what we were seeing with his facial expressions and working with Caleb Williams, but I think finally, I think they've found their common ground. And what you're starting to see with the gadget plays, you're starting to see Rome Dunze turn into a top 5 receiver right now. You're starting to see the Ben Johnson effect. And I said this earlier in the offseason. Remember, I said, give me shares of all the Chicago main players that I can get from the receivings. Like, just give me them all. Give me Colston Loveland. I want the rookie. I want Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams, right? And Colston Loveland were literally on every single one of my best ball teams. Drafted as obviously second tier. Because I was like, you know what? These dudes, when that offense gets rolling, it's going to click. Ben Johnson as an offensive guru, right? And I know he's not the OC. Again, it's the guy that came from Denver with Sean Payton. However, his influence in that offensive schematic room is huge. And you're starting to see it. A lot of mouths to feed out there, but again, big time aerial attack. And Caleb Williams is looking more and more comfortable with every throw in his young career. So again, I really, really like what we're seeing out there in Chicago. So I think quarterback wise, like the Carson Wentz thing, I mean, he's going up against Steelers. Steelers got a really good rush up the middle. So be curious to see how Carson Wentz does. I think that was just a weird game against Cincinnati. I don't think Carson Wentz really blew anybody away. But again, we talked about Kevin O'Connell. He's a really good offensive play caller. He's a really good coach, right? He plays, he calls plays based on, the player that he has behind center. So I like that a lot. I do. Now, from a fantasy perspective, I don't know, man. Honestly, I don't think I'm doing all that. But again, they did they did surgeries. I remember when they added one. That's a really good one, Vegas. I like that. I like that. Yeah, you're right, man. You could not be more right. But yeah, so I think the only option, the quarterback this week, to me would be Geno as a streamer. Now I know I heard a lot of people talk about Stafford. It's still I don't know, man. I feel some magic going on I feel some magic going on out there in Indianapolis. I do. That team's rolling. Shane Steichen's got that team rolling. The defense is rolling. I like what they're doing out there. I don't know if I'd want to take Matthew Stafford coming off a highly emotional loss over there in Indy Dome. So again, a very, very, very solid. The only thing that I think could be a positive in that game is if the Colts continue their offensive prowess and their onslaught that it could force those Rams to really air out and catch up, and they do have the players to do it. So I'm not sure, but I don't really want to rely on it. I think you get that from Geno regardless. I do. Running backs, obviously, we talked about Trey Benson, but I think a name to really keep an eye on is Travion Henderson. Another guy, Woody Marks. Keep an eye on Woody Marks. Because of Houston, I don't know how good they're really going to be. So they're just going to insert them. They're just going to insert the rookie in there as much as they can and allow him to get more and more time. And I think, because he does catch the ball and because they want to not get CJ Stroud killed, I think they're going to have to run the ball enough to make him fantasy relevant. Travion Henderson gets a lot of the touches because, again, Ramondre Stevenson had the Derrick Henry effect where he fumbles twice. Right. So Ramondre Stevenson can't hold on a damn ball either. So that's a good way. I mean, we talked about Vrabel being stubborn and getting a rookie out there because maybe he couldn't hold on to the ball, but when your vet can't hold on to the ball and your rookie hasn't shown, any inability to do so, you throw him out there. And he got 14 touches last week. So I think that will continue. So I think if you draft the Travion, have the patience, I think you will get your ROI. And I do think that if you're able to get him on waivers, obviously a really, really good ad. It's funny. We talked about Rashad White. Okay. And I do think that he's a really good target to pick up. I know he was out touched by Bucky Irvin 29-6. However, that was before we get the news of Mike Evans being out for almost a month. You're going to need an extra hands catcher out there. So for me, that's the guy. I would put him into the wide receiver room right there. And speaking of wide receivers on that team, I do think that listen, maybe you take a look at Sterling Shepard as a streaming option. If the pickings are slim, he's an opportunity. Again, this is a guy I say all the time. I mean, he went 4 for 80 last week. I feel like he's always going to get you those 4 to 5 catches every game, especially now. And if he can get you 70 to 80 yards and maybe a touchdown here and there, I mean, it's pretty good flex option. So I do like that. I like Turpin over Tolbert, like I said, because of the injury to CeeDee Lamb. I think that they can use a lot more to Tolbert. So I do like that. And from a tight end perspective, Hunter Henry, man, had a huge day. 11 targets, 8 catches, 90 for 2 tutties. Brenton Strange really got involved for Jacksonville. But I do want to say this about the tight end position. And I know a lot of people did listen to me, tune it in, and I'm happy about that because last thing I want you to do is waste your time. But I told you that no matter what, the tight end position, you would always be able to find somebody. You would always be able to find somebody. There's always going to be options, when it comes to the tight end position. Always going to be options when it comes to the tight end position. So that's something that, again, I think goes without saying that you can pick up a tight end whenever you need to. Now, looking at usage percentage, because I do think that obviously always is always a big deal when for fantasy football, and I think a lot of it you want to see is the receiving breakdown. Who's getting more of the snaps on certain teams, right? Who's getting those higher snap percentages, and who's like really creeping in that maybe we weren't expecting, right? Maybe we weren't expecting. So again, let's look at a couple teams, right? I'll tell you what, man, you look at Chicago, for instance. I do think that, obviously Odunze is the guy. You are going to have your opportunities with DJ Moore, but Odunze obviously shows that he's the guy. But again, Alamati Zacchaeus continues to just be on the field, man. Like, again, you're talking, he got 57.5% of the snaps. That half the snaps. I told you that number 3 receiver in a Ben Johnson offense continues to prove major value. Okay, 34 snaps last week as opposed to Odunze's 53. 34 as opposed to 53. A guy that you could probably get again as a flex option. I'll tell you, man, I like Zacchaeus. And you have to remember, I'm talking specifically for guys that again that are going to get a high target share, right? As his offense continues to roll, and you're looking at the waiver wire, and you have a lot of injuries, and it's really slim pickings. Zacchaeus is a guy, is a wide receiver three that listen, if you got no option, it's either 0 or a guaranteed 7 points before a touchdown or any extra touches. You take the 7, right? So I think that's where Zacchaeus really, really comes into play. So he's a guy that I think you're starting to see really insert himself, and I don't think it's something we're surprised at. I know players like myself that do all of the research. Again, I don't think that there's an issue right there. I know a lot of people said Jalen Tolbert, right? So he got 65 snaps. Now, Kavontae Turpin got 49. So, like I said, I would really look at Kavontae Turpin. I would. Obviously, Jake Ferguson's going to be the guy. So, I would definitely look at that. One interesting note: Troy Franklin moves up in Denver, surpasses Marvin Mims again, almost out snaps him by 50%, which I think is huge. Is huge, especially as Bo Nix continues to evolve here. So I think that's very important thing to watch. Detroit, listen, Detroit looks fantastic. I mean, they really do. Looks like they're really still buying into that dual running back set with Gibbs and Montgomery, and then you have the top two guys in JMO and Amon Ross. So again, nothing really to see there. I think nothing surprises you out there in Green Bay right now. It's just Green Bay is just injuries, right? Until everybody's healthy, I don't think it matters. We talked about Woody Marks. I think the very interesting thing out of Houston is the insertion of the presence that continues to elevate in volume is Woody Marks. Last week, only 3 snaps less than Nick Chubb. Only 3 snaps less than Nick Chubb. I do feel like this is a world by the time we get to week 5 or 6. Well, 5 is almost there. I'll say week 6, that it's going to go the other way. That Woody Marks is going to be out snapping Nick Chubb. I just think it's going to be the way it goes. So I do look at it. I know the offense is a mess. We don't know what's going on, but you could do a lot worse than having a guy like Woody Marks. Really. Vegas checking in says Pittsburgh running back Warren's carry percentage way up, and he gets catch. I love again. There's another guy, JT or TJG Vegas. For me, Jalen Warren was another guy I talked about in the offseason. Why is nobody drafted Jalen Warren? Who is his competition for carries out there? I know like Kenny Gainwell, but Kenny Gainwell is he's not gonna split carries. But maybe he gets 30%, but he's not gonna split carries. I mean, if you look at it right now, last week, just specifically, if you look at the running backs, Kenny Gainwell at 25% of the snaps. It was basically basically an 80-20 split, man. I mean, it's not even close. It's not even close. And Jalen Warren got 27% of the target share. His target share was higher than DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin, Jonnu Smith, everybody. He had the highest target share on the entire freaking team. Again, read the room. Read the room. What does Aaron Rodgers love to do? He loves to throw to the number 2 wide receiver and the number 1 running back of every team. He loves the flat passes. He loves the screen, but he loves all that stuff to the running backs. That and wide receiver 2, which is Calvin Austin. So I hope people listen to me in the all season when we talked about Calvin Austin, because that, to me, that's a big move. That's a big move. Indianapolis, we talked about it. Nothing out of the ordinary there. It's Jonathan Taylor and everybody else. It's going to be, obviously Tyler Warren, but for the receiver room, it's just going to continue to change every week. I mean, the number 1 guy is undoubtedly Michael Pittman Jr., but again, you're going to see shots going down to Alec Pierce. You're going to see Josh Downs. You're going to see a Donnie Mitchell. I mean, they're all going to get their share. They just are, especially with Daniel Jones throwing the ball and Shane Steichen calling the plays. Like, can I just say, and I said this before, and I'll continue to say it, that when I say read the room, it's like, look at other things besides what something's telling you. right? Look at others besides what something's telling you. Like, for instance, everybody understand? I said this last week, and people didn't realize that, Shane Steichen learned from Norv Turner. If you're a baseball historian, you know that Norv Turner was one of the biggest offensive gurus out there. Right? One of the dudes who just needed to be an offensive coordinator. Wasn't a great head coach, but a hell of an offensive coordinator. Shane Steichen learned from him. Shane Steichen learned from him. And, the MVP numbers put up by Jalen Hurts that year was under Shane Steichen. Shane Steichen knows how to call offense. He just didn't have the guy. You think he wanted Anthony Richardson? No. That pick was jammed down his throat. Now he has somebody that he trusts. That, like, again, doesn't have a new arm like Gardner Minshew. He's got a guy that he could trust out there in Danny Dimes. And listen, I'll tell you what, man, this offense is rolling. So getting shares on anybody from as a stream perspective after Michael Pittman Jr., you're doing yourself definitely something of justice. Now, Jacksonville, another offense that is broken, but very, very interesting when you look at snap percentages. And the name I'm going to look at is Parker Washington. He gets the highest target share of the team. Only 10% less from snap percentage of Brian Thomas Jr. But again, above Travis Hunter, above guys like De'Ami Brown and Tim Patrick. So again, the top two guys are always going to be Brian Thomas and Brenton Strange. But you added a Parker Washington who dropped a lot of balls, by the way. Dropped a lot of balls, but he had 11 targets, man. 11 targets versus Brian Thomas Jr. And one that he didn't catch the ball, he only got targeted 6 times. Parker Washington doubled his targets, basically. That's something to keep an eye on. That's why I was saying Brian Thomas Jr. is being overvalued in drafts. That's why I continue to tell people that. Being overvalued in drafts. Kansas City right now, it's whatever. Okay? Like, we don't know what's going on, who's going to be healthy. One thing I will say is I did see, I continue to see that, Tyquan Thornton is going to be that guy that they look to for the big play. So take that what it is. I mean, he's like last year's Deontay Johnson, right? Like, again, oh my God. He's like last year's Quentin Johnson. Okay. And the reason why I say that is we all wanted Q to be the guy last year, and he was like up and down. And now this year he's exploding. I think you're going to see that with Tyquan next year. But right now he's going to be boomer bust, right? Going to be boomer bust. Listen, this is going to be, he's going to be the number 3, in my opinion. Hollywood Brown hasn't done anything to really elevate his game without Xavier Worthy or Rasheed Rice and a declining Travis Kelce. So I look at this and say, Tyquan Thornton is going to continue to elevate. He's going to find himself in a really good number 3 role out there. And you talk about a receiving core of Rasheed Rice, a healthy Xavier Worthy, and Tyquan Thornton. I'll tell you what, and you still have a very solid above average. I still think he's above average tight end in Travis Kelce. I mean, you're looking good, man. You're looking really, really, really good. Again, make sure if you're following right now, make sure you like and subscribe to the Tony Cotola Show. Make sure you get over there to BetQL, betql.co. Use that promo code Jigsaw. And again, the reason why I like that the site is everything you have is all in one page. Your betting analysis, where the money's coming in, your 4 or 5-star bets, projections of players, everything in one specific page, which I think is really, really nice. So go check that out. If you have any questions or anything like that, let me know, and I will continue to lead you in the right direction. I'll get through a couple more of these, and then we'll just talk about going forward. Who we trust and who we don't trust. The Rams are the Rams. There's nothing that really snaps out to you with the Rams. We talked about Vegas, and like I said when I talked about Trey Tucker, okay, Jacoby Myers, 93% of the snaps. Trey Tucker, 93% of the snaps. So that, like I said, I mean, those guys are going neck and neck. I mean, the big 3, I know, again, a lot of it does have to do with Brock Bowers being, hindered a little bit. Aston Genti still not getting his stride, but knowing the way Chip Kelly operates and knowing the way, even when he was in Philadelphia, you know, like he had Deshaun and Jeremy Maclin, but he always wanted to establish both of those guys. So it just shows right there that he's putting Trey Tucker along the same lines as Jacoby Myers, and Trey Tucker's got that extra gear. Right, he's got that extra gear, which I think is very important to watch. So, Trey Tucker could be a very interesting flyer, I should say. Very, very interesting flyer. New England, we talked about the Travion Henderson play, the switch a little bit. I think another thing that I think was very interesting was out there in New Orleans. Now, it could have been because Devon Vele was inactive, but you got Brandon Cooks getting 70% of the snaps out there. I got 51 snaps this week. So just, little something every now and then to keep your eye on. That's all. Just, every now and then to keep an eye on. Nothing crazy out there in Jetsville. We already know about the Philadelphia Eagles. We know who their big guys are. That hasn't changed. Nothing out of the ordinary. Pittsburgh, again, like I said, Calvin Austin, 72% of the snaps, man. Like, it's something to keep your eye on. Seattle, I think this is another one to keep an eye on. We're starting to see that offense take shape a little bit, right? And but again, Trey Horton out there. Now he got 49% of the snaps, which is only 3% less than Cooper Kupp, and actually the same amount of snaps as JSN. Now, this could have been because of the illness that JSN had. Okay, it could have been. It could have been. Just saying. Never know, but it definitely is something. No matter what the game score or script was, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Now, the biggest thing is, who do we trust going forward, right? Like, what are our rest of the way rankings? And I don't think it's too early to look. These I wouldn't say these are set in stone, but I think it gives us a good idea about where some of these guys were, as opposed to where they were drafted. I mean, Jonathan Taylor right now is inserting himself into a top 3 running back role. If that's something you don't want to keep an eye on, I don't know what is. I talked about that. My fantasy, hey man, Vegas says his fantasy is 3-0. Don't sleep on the wheel, Vegas. Do not sleep on the wheel. That's all I got to say. Don't sleep on the wheel, because you just listen. You never know. You never know. Just think. What I would say, my suggestion would be to you is look ahead at those bye weeks. Start making adjustments now. Look ahead at schedules. Make those adjustments now. Like I already last week went in and picked up a different kicker and picked up a different defense. So JD checking in says, is I'm guessing that's Devontae. Is Devontae Smith worth trading for Zay Flowers from the Ravens? I would say yes. I would. I here's why, JD, and this is I'm assuming that you are trading away Devontae Smith and getting back Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is wide receiver 1. Can't worry about, listen, don't worry about what happened this week. Okay. You can't always look at that. Like, if that's the case, then we wouldn't have thought anything of Jamar Chase after week 1. We wouldn't have thought of anything with AJ Brown weeks 1 and 2. Devontae Smith, even though I love Devontae Smith, he's still the number 2 option in the Philadelphia offense. And if they run the ball the way they want, he's the number 3 option. And somebody could argue that he actually at times could be the 4th option because of Dallas Goedert. Just throwing it out there. Zay Flowers is undoubtedly the number 1 option in an offense with Lamar Jackson, who I know he's not going to hit this number, but is on pace to throw 55 touchdowns this year. He's on pace to throw 55 touchdowns. And here's another caveat here. You see the fumbling effect of Derrick Henry. which is just going to be more airmail for Baltimore. Because John Harbaugh is a player's coach. He's been around a long time. So the first thing I think of is like when they're going to keep pressuring him. Like, what do we do with Derrick Henry? What do we do? Are we worried about the fumbles? And he knows he has to protect the ball, but he also wants to protect his player. Well, how do you do both? How do you do both? Well, instead of giving the ball to Derrick Henry 20 times a game, you only give it to him 15. And you take those other 5 carries, you're not going to give them to Justice Hill. What you're going to do is you're going to make them an aerial attack. And that's just going to help more of Zay Flowers, who also can be used in a Debo Samuel type role as well, coming out of the backfield and do a little bubble screen, little jet sweeps and things of that nature. So I am all in on the Zay Flowers wagon. I would make that trade yesterday. I would make that, and that's my opinion. I would make that trade yesterday. Definitely. Now, looking at quarterbacks, man, I'll tell you what, man, Caleb Williams is creeping up. Caleb Williams is creeping up like he's creeping up in that top 5. I'll tell you what, right now, I'd obviously put him in there over Patrick Mahomes. I honestly, like you got Lamar, you got Josh Allen, you got Jalen Hurts, because Jalen Hurts always has the tush push, it has the touchdowns to take his numbers, over the top. But Caleb Williams is right there in that conversation, man. Him and Justin Herbert, Baker Mayfield, like all of them I put over Patrick Mahomes. So I think that's going forward, something to really, really look at. Omar and Hampton, continue to keep looking at Omar and Hampton. I will say what one person that really scares you right now is Chase Brown. Really, 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 really scaring me is Chase Brown. And not because Chase Brown a player, the Bengals a team. The injury, the offensive line, just a lot of stuff going on right now, man. And sometimes even you can have all the talent in the world, just can't overcome it. Just can't overcome it. JD says nice. I was thinking good time to plug him. Yeah, man. I absolutely. Absolutely, man. That's 100%. I would do that. I would do that 100%. 100%. Now, before we get, I do want to show you again because I mentioned BetQL, and I like to tell people and show people, exactly, you know what I'm looking at. Okay, this is exactly what I'm looking at. So this is BetQL right here. I'm gonna put it. Let me put it on the full screen here. Okay, and let me take this away. See, this is what we do. We do this live. Okay, so the reason why I like BetQL, and again, is because you got every single game up here. But the best thing is you got them all listed right here, and it's going to give you again, this is based on not their projections, just based on all the sites coming into one, right? All the sites. So you're already showing it's showing the Rams and like these are the biggest betting analysis games where all the money's coming in that, right? So let's look at this game right here. You got a 5-star bet, right? You see the betting analysis, all you need to do is open it up. Quick little screen, right? This is a snapshot. It's going to give you exactly what the over and under is, who the projected win percentage is, right? What their even first half score. You use that for some of your bets. Okay. The advantage, the team grades. But here's the best part. Go over to the C4 analysis. This is what I like. So again, number one is going to give you the best bet, right? By the book when it's live. Obviously, right now they just have Bet MGM and Caesars right now, but who's both minus 110, right? So that's going to be the consensus. But then you also can go down here, okay, and you can look at where the sharp better report, where the money's coming in at. Looks like a lot of the money coming in for the Colts, obviously so at home. But here's what I love: the prop bets. Right now, these aren't absolute, technically bets yet. Now, on Wednesday, probably Thursday, usually late Wednesday, early Thursday, you'll start to see these insert themselves on a star level. 1 to 5, 5 being the best, 1 being actually the least. But with the book, that's giving you the best number right here. But these are cool projections, so you can even get your ratings going. Okay, of all the players, right? And look, and the best thing is look, right? Everything on one page. Here's the latest news, right? Everything's the latest news. Updated yesterday, right? All the latest news. The last update was Sunday. Okay, so whenever the latest news comes in, you click on it. Boom! Look, Sunday night, right? Again, after the game. So a lot of different things all on one page. So I do think that this is highly worth it if you are number one, a betting person. Number two, if you just like stats, but if you just like to have everything in one page all over the place and every game listed up here. And then again, you have all the sports right here. So I really like to show everybody what I'm looking at. Again, listen, I have a promo code? Why? Do I use it? Yes. And why do I use it? What's your panic? Sage says, what's your panic meter on? It's huge. Sage, it's huge. I am so panicked right now over Chase Brown. And if again, I wouldn't be panicked if it was Joe Burrow, but it's not. And I just hope that Zach Taylor has enough to overcome this. And that means, listen, man, that offensive line again, like no, it's crazy because I thought they did make some really good revisions to it. Obviously not. And I just never understood again why you pay a guy hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars and you just don't protect them. You don't pay to protect them. It's crazy. So yeah, I am deeply listen, my panic meter is on like, if you ask me 1 to 10, it's on 10. I hate to say it. And Sage, I have Chase Brown on every single one of my teams. That's a guy again, you can't predict injuries, but that's a guy again to where I look at in the preseason, and he was on top 3 running back for me. And he's not there now. Now you said so I drafted him in the same way. Might not get anywhere close to the investment. Now, here's what I would tell you. I like thinking about this, Sage, right? So when people ask that question, like, do I cut bait early? You have to remember something. I was just talking to my son about this, and that's shout out plug. I was talking to both my sons for this. But my other son, like I said, Blades and Fades drops tomorrow. So make sure you check that out. Again, my son's an aspiring barber, aspiring fantasy football analyst. So he's trying to do everything. So we brought up a segment, tie them together. So make sure you check that out. But Sage, I look at this and go, week 4, after week 4 of a fantasy season is when you start to need to make adjustments because you essentially have 10 weeks left, right? 10 weeks left before that playoff push. So if you're 0-4, major changes need to happen. But if you have players that you have to look at this Joe Burrow injury, like when's he coming back? December, right? So again, like you need to get to December. So you may not get the second. Don't look at where you drafted him. Right? I say this all the time. When you make trades, you cannot look at that. You're going to eat value. You're going to eat it. It is what it is. Like just it's like buying a car, right? Think about this. You buy a car, you drive it off the lot, it drops 20%. So as you drive it off the lot, it drops 20%. 2 years down the road, it's not everything you thought. You want to get rid of it. But you're like, but I paid all this money. I'm going to eat some money. Yeah, but you're going to eat some money in order to get something that may not be as luxurious and may not have cost what it cost you to buy the other one for. However, it's going to make you more comfortable. And in the end, it's going to get you where you need to be with less worry. So I look at Chase Brown the same kind of way. So, for instance, you're obviously going to have to get a running back for Chase Brown. Somebody's going to sell low or on Chase Brown. I mean, they're going to want to sell low, right? I mean, they're going to want to buy low. So you're going to have to sell low. So look at the other guys, right? Look at the other guys. Who's another guy that possibly could be being sold low? Jaylen Warren. I'll give you one in Vegas is watching. He's going to love it. Just hypothetically, Jaylen Warren. Now, if you look at Chase Brown's numbers, okay, you look at Chase Brown's numbers, 93 yards rushing. He's averaging 2 yards per carry, 11 targets. Okay, he literally literally has 20 fantasy points this year so far. Okay. Now, if you pull up Jalen Warren is averaging 3.1 yards per carry, but he got 132 yards rushing. And he also has 11 receptions, but for 142 yards, he's giving you 33 points. Now, you might say, dude, how am I trading Chase Brown for Jalen Warren? Again, you got to go 2 for 1, right? But you have to think about what makes sense, right? What makes sense. So that may make more sense going in the long run. Yeah, what is the ceiling? They both have. Listen, the ceiling is a little higher for Jalen Warren. He's not in the ceiling yet, but he's getting there. Chase Brown's nowhere near his ceiling. However, that ceiling may not change until Joe Burrow comes back, and before that, it might be too late, right? So again, so that's what I would look at, and I would say I would totally think about it. Totally think about it because you have to play that kind of scenario out. Again, I'm not saying trade Chase Brown for Jalen Warren. What I'm saying is if you get Jalen Warren plus somebody else, I think I would do it. Right? So think about this. You got it, brother. You got it. Uh like it's but they are the Steelers O line is a work in progress. It's crazy, lots of high picks on it, but they've underperformed so far. The one thing is with Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball and more of an aerial attack. See, last year when you have Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, you didn't have to worry about it, right? So you could stack the box. You really can't stack the box this year because you need to respect Aaron Rodgers, and you saw him even get more people involved last week, right? So you have Jonnu Smith out there, very athletic tight end that's going to get involved. So it's going to give a lot of opportunity for Jalen Warren. So Sage, all I'm saying is think about it this way. If last thing I'll say is if you could get let me open it up. Say you say right now, say a trade is Chase Brown for Jalen Warren and I'm throwing these names out there, okay? For Jalen Warren and let me give you a name, Khalil Shakir. Okay. Hypothetically, I'm saying, and you go, ew, really? Okay. Just hear me out for a second. Hear me out for a second. So in a PPR league, okay, Shakir's averaging 10 points per game, PPR. Jalen Warren, okay, we go back to Jalen Warren. You got to look at what is he averaging per game, okay? So Jalen Warren, let me pull this up for you. So you got 10 from Shakir, okay? If you go Jalen Warren, what are you going to get? You are going to get, doing this on the fly, people, so give me a second. All right, you're going to get, let me put the PPR numbers in here. You're going to get 15 points per game, and Taz 25. So you just got 25, and the ceiling for Chase Brown right now is probably 15. And when Barrow comes back, it's probably going to be 20. You're already above the ceiling on two guys that are giving you that right now. And Shakir's not going to say 10. He's probably going to be more like 12 to 15. You see what I'm saying? So what would you rather do? I like it a lot. I like it a lot. But again, you got takes two to tango, right? Takes two to tango. You got to find a dance partner, man. As always, man. If everybody's not like, subscribe, make sure you like, subscribe right here on the Tony Cotola Show. A lot of big things playing for the Tony Cotola Show. Our good partners, powered by BetQL. Again, use that code word Jigsaw. That promo Jigsaw. Make sure you get. Again, I got the Roto coming soon. I should have that figured out next week. I'll start doing some DFS projections. We'll start doing all that as well. We're gonna do some betters, some sleepers, some underdogs. We're gonna do it all here, man. We're gonna do it all here. This is the stuff I always did serious. I'm just gonna be doing it on my own, right? I'm gonna do it on my own for people's like for tails and for BetQL. That's where we're gonna be. So JTG says, or TJG, I always say JTT. TJG says, are you in any multiple year fantasy teams? Yes. I'm in two. One's been going for 5 years. The other one's been going for God, 20 20 years. One is a keeper. You have to keep. You'll like this one. The one is an 8-man keeper league, and the 8-man keeper league. Yeah. Dynasty is interesting. I'm not a big dynasty guy. It's a lot of studying, man. Like, a lot of studying. I'm not, but I do love best ball. I probably have 15 best ball teams. I love best ball to me is the best way to get ready for your drafts. You learn so much about players, where they're going, tendencies, where you can get guys like I knew just by doing best ball drafts, I knew that I could get guys like Calvin Austin in the last round of a draft. I knew I could get guys like Jake Ferguson in the last round of a draft. So I would just wait, and I knew, right? Because nobody was drafting them. So, that's what I like. And to get back to the one league, give you guys an idea, which is pretty cool. 8-man keeper league. Keep anybody from round 8 on. This year, my keeper was Devon A Chain. And when you keep him, if anybody knows how keeper works, that's the whatever round you drafted him in the previous year is the round that you pick him in, like as your keeper, round 15. So my 15th round pick in my draft this year was Devon A Chain. How's that? Like, where you get Devon A Chain in the 15th round? Crazy. But again, when you're drafting based on 8 men, there's a lot of extra people available, right? There's a lot of extra people available. Sage Dynasty is just like I said. I mean, it's a monster. Dynasty is an absolute monster. It really is. Honestly, it really, really is. So again, I would prefer best ball. I do want to get into a guillotine league eventually. I've never done them yet. I'm very intrigued about the guillotine league. Um, I really am. So again, but again, a lot of different things this week. A lot of different things. I want to start again. I got to be very careful because I was going really strong and I don't want to burn myself out. Because again, I think people. I want to be honest with everybody. Like this is a lot different than hopping on the radio. So it's an adjustment. Now, I've always created content. I've always run streams. I've always done YouTube, but to do it consistently, like when I was on Sirius for 3 years, I showed up. I had my notes. I did 8-minute segments. I did a couple reads. We took some calls. And at 2 hours, I hung up. I was done. They dropped a couple clips, and we were good. Well, when you're doing this on your own, like this is all solo, right? You're producing the show, you're doing pre-production, gotta do the graphics, gotta do the banners, gotta do the run sheet, who we're talking about, gotta get the stats together, right? Gotta get the banners going, gotta do your promos. And then when you're done, you gotta make sure that all the descriptions are right, the tagging's correct, the playlists are good. Then you gotta cut the clips, then you gotta promo the clips, right? That's a lot of work. So if you're doing it, not that I'm not saying I love it, right? I think you guys know that, but I'm saying it because sometimes it's like if you do it every single day while you're still working 3 other jobs and doing 2 other things and being a dad and being a husband and being a coach and running a podcast and like I'm a nut, I'm a crazy ass man. I do all kinds of stuff, but it's because I love the microphone. I love to talk to the people, but I'm just saying sometimes that's what I'm like, you know what? Not doing it tonight. Right? Not doing it tonight. It's different to be like, hey, I'm hopping on the radio for an hour. It's totally different. Totally different, right? It's a whole different vibe. It's a whole different vibe. I mean, I say this all the time. You get breaks. When I do these, I mean, we're an hour and 5 minutes and I don't shut up. I'll take breaks, man. I'll take breaks. I got a really, really good segment coming up. And this is for anybody checking in. It's called Spitting Fire. It's going to be a debate, and it's going to be. I'm working on it right now. So if you're interested, hit me up. What it's going to be for people locally. We're going to do it in studio. For people that aren't local, we're going to do it digitally. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a surprise topic that we have X amount of time to debate on. And I'm not going to know the topic. You're not going to know the topic. I'm not sure how we're going to figure it out. But whatever it is, it's going to be fun. Uh, like Vegas says, you're like the Jamaican father on In Living Color back in the day. You only had 13 jobs. You late. Yo, In Living Color Vegas was my shit, man. For real. Homie, don't play that. Like I Fire Marshal Bill, man, the Wayans brothers really killed it, man. Really killed it. Living Color was the best. They would not get away with that today. They would not get away with half of that today. Sage says, here's my team, 12 team PPR. Quarterback. I love Bo Nix. I know he's been up and down, but listen, I'll be fine. Running back, obviously, Bucky Irving, great. Chase Judkins. Listen, you're actually rolling good with Judkins, right? I mean, look, as long as he stays like a good soldier and everything works out. I mean, here's a kid who's going to he got the rock 18 times. I mean, he's going to continue to get the rock. So, I mean, like that makes the trade even better. Gives you another ceiling play. Wide receiver Justin Jefferson, Mike Evans, Cortland Sutton. Wow, you got 12 team. You just got hit with Mike Evans, right? You got Ellick, you got Bill, you have Wandell. Listen, Wandell, I think Wandell could be a really good fill-in right now for Mike Evans. But listen, here's a perfect opportunity, like we were talking about, right? Mike Evans, right? Mike Evans was never a wide receiver one. So, like, look at your team right now. You asked me, should I try to trade Chase Brown? Think about this. Say you did trade Chase Brown for Jalen Warren and you got Khalil Shakir back, right? Say you got those two guys back. Look at where your team would be. Take out Chase Brown. You insert Jalen Warren. You still have Judkins, right? And now Mike Evans, who's going to be on the shelf for a month, you got Khalil Shakir. And then you can flip-flop him and Wandell. I mean, it's a good problem to have. I like your team a lot. For a 12-man, that's a good team. You got options. My man Liam says, should I trade Ridley and Judkins for Jalen Warren and Olave? I don't know. This is a good one. I mean, oh man, like you're going two right away. You're going two offenses that suck right now, right? I mean, you got Olave in a bad offense. You got Ridley in a bad offense. You got two guys in a bad offense. So right there to me, they're both a wash. The only thing I can tell you is Ridley is technically the wide receiver one. So as Cam Ward and an offense figures it out, I mean, he should be more valuable than Olave, but that's kind of like a wait and see. Judkins is here's what I'll say about Judkins. Actually, I think I would make this trade. People are gonna say I'm nuts. I already know it. I can see it. People are gonna say I'm nuts. And I'm gonna tell you why. Because no matter what, no matter what, Cleveland is going to run a ball. I know that. But I don't ever think you're going to see Judkins be the every down PPR kind of back. I do think that you can get that out of Jalen Warren for the most part. So, and it's on a better team. Aaron Rodgers loves throwing the ball to the running back. So I do. I think, I don't know, maybe I do that trade. You say you have Puka, Scary Terry, Ashton Genty, and Jordan Mason. You know what? You already, yeah, do it. Do it. Honestly, why not? What do you got to lose, right? What do you got to lose? I mean, if Spencer Rattler, you Kellen Moore's a good offensive play caller, Kevin Stefanski's a good offensive play caller, but you have to look at, I would be put it this way, taking who's calling the plays, I would take Olave over Ridley right now in that situation. So Yeah, I mean, I don't think you go wrong either way, but I would lean towards Warren and Olave, especially because you have Puka and you got McLaurin and you got Ashton Genty, you got Jordan Mason, right? I mean, I'd start Jalen Warren over Ashton Genty right now, right? I'd start Judkins over Ashton Genty right now because we don't know what's going on. A lot of good stuff, man. A lot of good stuff. You know, you have to, you definitely have to think a little bit, right? You have to think a little bit. But as always, make sure you like and subscribe to stream. Appreciate it. Like and subscribe at Tony Cotillo Show. You'll find me on X at Tony Cotillo Show. Listen, sports betting, fantasy, and then local and national talk as well. So again, it's not a hashtag here is not just Philly. I'm a Philly guy, but again, I love Philly. And again, if you like podcasts, here's going to be my shameless plug, okay, for everybody listening because this is a really big passion project. You're going to see it right here on the left, on the right, okay. Fighting for overtime. Scan the QR code. That's my podcast. It's going 2 years strong now. Really starting to catch some eyeballs. It's all about the awareness in youth sports when it comes from mental health impacts. I have kids on. I have coaches. I have parents. I have former players. I have authors, and I also tell my own stories as well. I like some crazy, crazy stories that are highly relatable. So again, check it out. Much appreciated. You can find it at Fighting for Overtime everywhere, wherever you get your podcast from. But if you scan that QR code, it takes you right to the link tree. Listen, there's no catch here, no payments, none of that shit. All I'm saying is it's a really good conversation with people. So again, I greatly appreciate it if you check that out. We have a sandwich shop named Pops, Pride of Philly sandwiches. Have been here for decades. They're great. Oh, check that out. I like that. Pops, Pride of Philly sandwiches. That's interesting. Vegas, where's that at? I forget. Where are you from, Vegas? Sage says, I am 1-2. My team is good on paper, not fancy. Hope. Well, I mean, again, you have guys. Bo Nix hasn't performed the way we thought yet, right? He came out a little bit. So what's nice is you have him and Cortland Sutton, right? So you do have him and Cortland Sutton, which is nice. You have Justin Jefferson. Unfortunately, Justin Jefferson's getting hit with the quarterback bug, which is a reason why I didn't draft Justin Jefferson. Not saying he can't snap out of it, but I was just scared. I was worried about what was going to come out of that, right? So, Bucky Irvin is going to be Bucky Irvin. So yeah, you just have to get the right mix of guys. But I do think you can make your team could turn around a lot if you could make something like that happen for Chase Brown. I really do. I think that could be something that could really, really work for you. That's right. I'm on Vegas, right? Hence the name, right? Hence the name. It's on the care. You're going to have to send me a picture of that sandwich, man. You have to send me a picture on your sandwiches. All right, everybody. I'm gonna get out of here. I got to do some betting work, some betting research for tomorrow. I want to get ready for Thursday night football. Obviously, everybody, as always, like and subscribe. Greatly appreciate it. The only way I can keep going is if we like and subscribe to this YouTube channel and we continue to rise us up. And again, my good partners over there at BetQL. Make sure you go to www.betql.co again. And if you are into that, use that code Jigsaw. Like I said, get you 50% off. So any questions? Pick only winners, everyone. I love it. Yes, pick only winners. As always, everybody have a fantastic evening. I'm sure, again, keep it locked here on the page. I'll be popping in, popping out. Probably do my breakdown Friday night for Sunday and maybe do a couple things along the way as well. So everybody, as always, stay safe and stay healthy, and we'll catch you back